Hi and welcome back to the garden. In this video we're cutting back our perennials in readiness for spring. It's so good to be back in the garden, and with the extra light at the end of the day we're on to a really good start for spring. So I've come to this narrow border to begin with, and this was a beautiful border last year, full of colour, full of interest, and it's held up well during the winter, but now is the time that we can be getting in with our shears and our secateurs and cutting it all back and getting ready for that lovely display that we're going to get this year. For this job we're going to need some equipment. Some shears, some secateurs, a trowel or fork, and something to put all the debris in. So I'm going to start on this side of the border and work my way right down to the other side. So first up is one of the salvias. This is Salvia Caradonna, and what I'm going to do first is take off these old pieces of stem, and I'm going to cut right back, right to the base of where these stems are coming from. All this brown wood is last year's growth. And then once you've done that, you can actually see with this particular plant there are a few weeds that are growing really close to this plant. So just using the fork, I'm just going to be carefully dig these out. Try not to disturb the plant too much around it. So these are these perennial weeds that we get that just need taking out manually with a spade or a fork or a trowel. So now we've got rid of all that top growth, we can now see that that plant has already started to grow, and that will be doing beautifully. So just while I'm here with the fork, I'm just going to remove any other weeds that are around, some of these pieces of grass that have encroached into the border. There's some more of that perennial weed that can also come out. So just behind where the salvia is, we have a lovely geranium called Geranium Brookside, and that again is showing some signs of growth at the base. So I'm just going to remove all of this top dark growth, and I'm going to start just by taking it up just above where the crown is, just so I can firstly get myself in to see what is happening. And there's lots more weeds that have come up in and around it, so they can all come out. So for now, I'm just taking away all of that debris. Just so I can see what I'm working with. Move that grass over there. Taking away all these old stems. And it's so lovely to see some lovely fresh new growth appearing from these plants. It's the sign that the weather's changing, the seasons are changing, and we're on to a brand new gardening year. So now, just looking closely at this geranium, we can now get right in with the secateurs and begin to cut a lot more closely to that crown and get all of this dead wood out. And there's no magic art to this. It's just a case of looking, anything brown, cut it down. And if you can get as close to that crown as you can, all the better. So we're not left with any stubby bits of growth that's sticking out, making everywhere look untidy. And there's another piece of that dreadful weed. Just needs coming out of there. This is so therapeutic. It's getting rid of all the old, making way for the new, seeing all those brand new shoots that are going to bring all the beautiful flowers this year. It's such a wonderful thing to see. So now it's the time of this perennial wallflower. So this is an evergreen plant, and this has kept all its leaves over the winter time. And now we can see the beginnings of the flowers starting to show in the centre of these stems. So this doesn't need any cutting back really at all, but I have noticed there are some parts that obviously died, so these bits can be taken out, leaving it all nice and great framework for this coming year. So all I'm going to do with these ones is firstly take off some of these old spent flower heads, so they weren't taken out last year. I'm just going to take them out now. They're first to go. And I'm just looking to see if there are any diseased parts that can be taken down. Any parts that have died as well can also go. So I'm just looking through it. Now there's a part here that's obviously died, so I'm just going to take that right back to where it originates from the main stem. Another part there can go right back. And there are some parts on this as well that can also go. Some more bits there. Find out where they're coming from. I'm being careful not to be prickled by the rose, which is entangled through this. So that's coming back from that part there. And this is a beautiful Erysimum. Erysimums are quite woody plants, so it's really wise to take cuttings every year and produce new plants like we did last year, because it can get really untidy. And whilst I don't want to get rid of this yet, it has got lots and lots of flowering potential still. Maybe next year or the year after we will introduce some new ones, because it does get very, very woody. So I'm going to keep those ones on there. That one seems to have died, so that can be taken right back to the original stem. There's a few more there. Go. So I think, looking at that, that is everything. I just can't wait for these yellow flowers to start appearing, because these are also fragrant. So not only have we got a beautiful yellow, we've also got that beautiful fragrance to look forward to as well. One more there, I've just missed. Can go right down to the ground. So next up is this rose. So this is obviously not a perennial, but it is growing beautifully. You can already see it has a lot of the buds already starting to grow, and that, if we leave it, is going to grow too high for this border. So I'm just going to give this a prune as well. So what I'm looking for is just reducing it just a little bit in height, so that it's not going to be too heavy in terms of height on this side of the border. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find Although there's a shoot there, I am going to go further down and try and encourage these buds further down to develop. So I'm just going to get a nice slanting cut just above where the bud will form and grow. So on this one, I'm going to go for that one there. And on this one, see, ideally you're looking for an outward facing bud so that you keep the centre of the rose nice and open, and that does help to prevent any disease getting in. Lots of good air circulation. I'm going to go for that there. And then these ones, I think they're going to be okay. There's a few bits down the middle here that have actually died, so I'm just going to take those out. They can be cut right back to the base. So this is a rose that's been in for many, many years. This was here when we arrived. I was probably here maybe in the 70s or even the 80s. This just goes to show that roses, once you plant them, can live for a hell of a long time, which is absolutely brilliant. Yeah, there's quite a few stems right at the base that I'm just going to take away. I can try and do it without getting prickled too much. So now it's the time of the Stipa tenuissima grasses. Now there is the debate. Some people like to take away and pull out all of these old stems, and some just go right in with the shears and cut the whole thing down. I'm on the fence, I must admit. I usually very judiciously go through each one and just pull out the ones that are dead, the stems that are dead. But because we have quite a few now, it's going to take me too long. So I'm going to try and be a bit more brutal. So I've got these shears and I'm just going to get the whole plant, and in one fell swoop I can take the whole plant away and pop that in the bucket. And that won't do the plant any harm whatsoever, because there'll be new stems that will grow from that stump. And they will carry this year's leaves and this year's flowers. So as you can see, I've just cut just about a couple of inches above the ground, taken all that down with the shears, and that should be adequate enough. So there are some parts of this rose which are completely gone. So I've just got a little saw and I'm going to take these pieces right down to the ground. So next we have the phlox. Now we have 2 clumps of this phlox in this border, and these stems have stood quite well during the winter. It's now time to get those reduced right down to the base. I can already see there's some beautiful growth restarting to grow, and we want to take that all the way down so that new growth can then have lots of light and chance to come up. So on this one we're just going to take these right back as close to where these new shoots are, but being careful not to damage them. They are quite brittle and will probably snap away without the need for secateurs really. Just for neatness. I'm going the whole plant, taking all these away. And look, we can see a lot more light can get now into there. And if you can, just try and take away any weeds that may be growing around. Just using that fork. So our intention with these phlox is to divide them again, because we want the structure in this border going along throughout the whole entire section. So we'll come back to these at a later stage in the near future, and we'll show you how we divide them as well. So moving further down the border, we have some more of the Stipa tenuissima and also some more of the Salvia. So I'll just get ahead and chop those right back down, just in the same way that I did with the previous ones. Cutting as close to the base as I possibly can without causing too much damage to the new shoots. And also with the Stipa tenuissima, one fell swoop cuts out most of it. This is quite a big one, this one. And go right around it, chopping it all back. You can also see some more of the Erysimum that needs taken out as well while we're here. These Stipa tenuissimas are beautiful, but they don't half make a mess. They get everywhere. But they are worth it. So I'll let them off. And this border is now opening up beautifully. We can now see what's going on at ground level. We can get those weeds that are going to cause problems later out as well. And then the Salvia on the other side, that can come down also. And that's revealed a beautiful little crocus there at the back. So next is the turn of the Euphorbia. Now Euphorbias are beautiful plants, and this particular one has beautiful foliage that is etched in a nice red with variegation with the green, and also beautiful bracts of lime green when they come out in flower. So with regards to this one, I'm just going to cut these back right down to the ground, these pieces that are last year's flowers. Now it's always wise to wear gloves when handling euphorbias, because they do have some sap inside the stems, and that can be an irritant to your skin. So if you're not used to handling euphorbias, I would suggest you do put gloves on. So I'm just cutting these right back to the base. So this Euphorbia is going to be moved somewhere else, because we want to have the phloxes in repetition down the whole length of this border. So this is going to be rehomed. So I'm going to leave it there for the time being until we do that. I'm just going to take all of these weeds from around it. So there is quite a lot of work left to do on this border, and what we would normally do once we've finished doing the cutback is come back and put a whole layer of mulch over the top with some compost or even some manure. And because we have got plans to divide some of the plants and also move things around a little bit, we are going to delay that slightly. So the mulch will be the last thing that we do with this border. For the time being, I'm just cutting everything back and getting most of the weeds out. So moving on, there's another geranium. This is the Geranium Patricia, and again I'm cutting close to the crown to begin with, and then I can get further down once I can see where I'm going with things. So there is some growth right in the centre coming up, so I'm just going to cut these back as far as I can get without damaging those new shoots. And it's really useful, if you don't already have plant labels, it's really useful to have labels on your perennials, because when we do this cut back, it does mean that we can see where things are. Because if that label wasn't there, that plant could quite easily get overlooked. But because it is there, I can see exactly what it is and where it is. It's such an exciting time. So the next plant we got is the Achillea. So this is a plant called Moonshine, and I'm just taking away the obvious dead stuff to begin with, just pulling it away from the plant, just to reveal those new stems that are coming up. So with the Achillea, because it's already starting to grow, there's not much that I need to do with that now. I've just taken away the obvious dead stems, leaving that growth there untouched. Just taking a lot of this debris away. And then we're moving on to the last Salvia. So that can be taken back, just like all the rest of them were. Quite a few weeds around here, so I can just pull at those as well. And then lastly, we have this lovely Phlox. Again, can come right down to the ground. So the very last thing to do with this border is remove this obelisk, because that's not going to come in here this year. And these pots where the sweet peas used to be, I'm just going to tip out all that compost onto the ground. So as I've already said, I've just cut these back for the time being. I'm not going to mulch just this minute because we need to get some things rearranged, some things divided. We've also got some new plants that are going to be planted. So for the time being, the border's done. It can be left to let a lot more light in. The weather's getting a bit warmer now, which is fantastic. So that's it from me today. I've had a really brilliant morning cutting all these things back. Now is the time to be doing it if you've not already done so before. So thank you very much for watching. That's it from me from the garden. Please like the video if you can, and if you've not already subscribed, please subscribe, and we'll see you very soon on the next one.